I hear it from a lot of people. Gosh, Brock is Jimmy 2.0.
Brock or Pac?
Both of them.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Pac 2.0 would be 2.0 Pac. Anyway.
Yeah.
Point is this, and I'll admit a spot where my feathers get ruffled, and maybe it was because of even the house I grew up in. I love every single piece of my mom and dad who are still together today. But one thing I learned in this business was I took a little chip on my shoulder in terms of like, I'm going to prove to you that I can do it. Because my mom is a worrier. And so when I was going to do this job, I was fed with a whole lot of, oh, no, don't. No, that's just not safe. And there's not this. And I guess it's hard to get into. And it's not stable. And she was right. It's completely unstable.
Sure.
Boy, was she right about that.
And hard to get into.
Right. But I did it anyway. And I carried a lot of that with me of like, I'm going to prove to you that I can do this. I don't like it when we tell people you can't. You won't. So when I watch people, and I saw a bunch of you on YouTube just a second ago, Brock is not going to do fill in blank. He's not Tom Brady. Well, probably not. I don't know who the hell's Tom Brady. Why would anyone have that career again ever? It's a crazy career. I would never predict that. But who on earth are you to tell all of us where this is going to go? Why is it that because he was drafted in the 7th round, you're so damn sure that he can't be great? Why are you doing that when we have evidence in every draft that's ever existed in any sport where people fly out of the late rounds? In fact, people fly out of no rounds. They are undrafted, and they turn out to be amazing players. That's what I want to know. I totally understand why people are excited to see Trey Lance. But why are we flipping that into telling Brock Purdy that because he was drafted in the 7th round, that's a bunch of poppycock that he might end up being really good? I don't get that.
I don't know if that is the only reason why people don't think that Brock Purdy can be, quote, any good. I think that people look at the similarities between Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. Physically not that imposing, physically not that skilled. They don't have great mobility. They don't have a great arm. Brock Purdy's more mobile than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he seems to be a little bit more able to dissect what's going on with the defense and improvise and make plays and all that and more. But you look at a guy like Trey Lance who's got more physical skill, he's got more size, more strength, and you think then by proxy that he would be a better quarterback. And I don't think that people look at Brock Purdy's draft spot as much anymore in terms of, well, because you were taken where you were taken, you can't be any good. I think a lot of that's gone now.
Do you?
I do, personally.
Interesting, man, because I look at this, and if I asked you, I'm only going to give you 2 players. You get to name 2 names. You can pick any 2 you want, but give me who you think are the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Of all time?
Yes, and I'm going to make you say only 2 names. So it can be any 2 you want.
Right.
But the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Who would you pick?
I will say Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say Mahomes because he's on that trajectory, and I want to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that's fine. Like, I have no issues with whatever your answer was. And Patrick Mahomes is physically imposing. He has got every physical tool you can imagine. I would bet that many people listening to my voice just said to themselves, Tom Brady and Joe Montana.
Right.
Both of whom had seemingly 0 physical skill. None. They couldn't. Montana.
Brady's 6'4".
Yeah, and he's got a good arm. It's certainly not.
It was better when he was younger.
Yeah, but it's never.
Go back and watch the YouTube clips. The dude could throw it.
No, he's an NFL quarterback.
Yes, but
he never was a Mahomes or an Allen in terms of a howitzer arm.
Right.
He was never that.
Much bigger arm though earlier in his career.
Sure, Montana. He couldn't move at all. Montana could a little bit. But he didn't have a great arm. He didn't have, what did Joe have? He didn't have a great anything. He had a great sense. He just had a great way about him. He had the ability to come back late. He was incredibly accurate. If I look at those two quarterbacks,
Montana more mobile than you remember, though.
No, I said he can move.
Yeah,
he can move. I think Brock can move as well as Joe, maybe even better.
Different era.
Yeah,
but
they move differently. I bet for some people a name coming up would be Peyton Manning. Now, Peyton Manning had an amazing arm. He was very tall. But again, when he walks into the room, that's not an imposing athlete like a Mahomes or an Allen or anything like that. So I don't know that there's that line that we draw between you're a great athlete, therefore you can be great at quarterback. You can be that mediocre-looking NFL athlete and be a great quarterback. We've already seen it multiple times.
It's harder, though, and those guys are more rare. Your Drew Breeses and your Doug Flutie's those are more the aberration. Russell Wilson, that's more of the exception as opposed to the norm. If you want to go through like the numbers, the stats of all the best quarterbacks in history, you're going to find more Elways, Mannings, and Brady's than you are Breeze and Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
and Brock Purdy.
But you put Brady on the uber athlete side, and I don't think he belongs there. I don't think he belongs there at all. He couldn't even start in college. He was
a big guy though,
yeah,
late bloomer.
There's a lot of big guys. I mean,
but in terms of like physical athletic specimen, absolutely. And we could talk about Dan McGuire at 6'9". It doesn't mean because you're tall that you're good.
No, I disagree. Like, I mean, remember the pictures of Tom Brady for his draft profile. He was he looked like a tall Mac Jones. He wasn't chiseled. He wasn't anything.
Well, Mac Jones is like what, 6 foot?
Yeah, right. But I mean, what's Tom like?
6'4".
Okay, that's not that crazy. Like, okay, he was a little tall. Bonte's 6'4".
Bonte could spin it. Don't sleep on Bonte.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not putting Brady on that side. The uber athletes and how many uber athletes were drafted to go be great? And
well, how many uber athletes are playing quarterback right now in the NFL?
A lot.
I mean, really good. I'm talking about an athlete who could be, maybe this guy could play a different professional sport. You're talking about Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes.
Allen.
You put Josh Allen on there. I wouldn't put Joe Burrow on that list.
See, Burrow and Herbert are interesting. Those are pretty, dude, they're athletes.
Russell Wilson you'd put on that list. The guy I
used to know.
The guy could have played minor league baseball.
Sure.
He's on the list. Kyler Murray's on the list.
But yes, sure.
But you're talking about uber athletes, quote unquote.
Absolutely.
These are guys, to me, if you are an uber athlete, you're a guy who could have played another sport at a high level.
And you just named some people that you'd take Brock Purdy over right now. If I offered you Kyler Murray or Brock Purdy for the next 4 years, who would you take?
At shortstop?
No, at quarterback.
Oh, I'd take Brock Purdy.
There you go. So I don't I mean, this underscores my point, I guess. Why does the 49er quarterback, or anyone for that matter, in order to be great, why do you have to be an uber athlete? Why do you have to pop off the screen?
But it'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Sure.
And I think it's partly because of Jimmy Garoppolo PTSD. For those people who don't think that Jimmy Garoppolo was good enough, for those people who think that Jimmy Garoppolo was the reason why the Niners didn't win those Super Bowls, you look at Brock Purdy and you think, here we go again.
Yeah, maybe. But that's PTSD. That's not rational. That's not coming from...
It's emotional, yeah.
Right, that's not coming from a good place. Like, when people go, Brock Purdy's not Tom, I'm like, you're right, he's also not Jimmy. He's Brock. Like, we don't need to make him someone else at all. And I want to make sure I'm clear here. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy's going to be an all-time great. Here's my opinion. It's way too early to know for sure, but I loved what I saw last year, and I think that in over an 8-game stretch that included playoffs, I thought that run from Brock Purdy was better than anything we ever saw Jimmy Garoppolo do. I thought that. And I'm mindful that they were his first 8 games.
Yeah.
So
it's hard for me to go that far because of what we talked about last segment in terms of who he had riding with him, because it was much easier for Brock Purdy in Kyle Shanahan's 7th year with a Hall of Famer, Christian McCaffrey, a possible Hall of Famer in George Kittle, a surefire Hall of Famer in Trent Williams, and 2 elite all-pro level receivers in Debo and Ayuk, as opposed to Marquise Goodwin, Carlos Hyde, and a bunch of nobodies. Jimmy Garoppolo had a much tougher go taking over a 1-10 team than Brock Purdy did.
Quick aside, you saying that Brock Purdy played with 2 elite receivers. I know one guy who vehemently disagrees with you on that point. His name is Debo Samuel.
Would you assess your season last year?
Oh, it was awful. It was awful.
In what way?
Every aspect.
Did that leave a bitter taste in your mouth?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Me and Kyle had a long meeting the other day. We watched tape. We talked about it. We put it behind us, and just going through the tape and just look how sluggish and like how bad it looked on tape. Like I said, just reflecting on last offseason, it kind of played a big role in that, and I never put nothing like that back on tape again.
Did you feel it as the season was going on, or was it not until you went back and watched it?
I was kind of behind the 8 ball a little bit for us, being in my routine that I normally be in for the offseason, getting ready to play because, like I said, a lot of distractions was going on. But, I kind of felt it, but I was just, trying to will my way to help the team in every aspect possible.
How about that? Brock Purdy was getting pulled down by this crappy crappy WR1 that the Niners had to deal with all year named Debo.
Man, that's surprising to hear him be that frank and that honest in a self-reflective mode. He comes out in the opener, 2 catches for 14 in the monsoon. You were there.
Yeah.
And then, 3 good games and then a bad game and then a couple of okay games and then he got hurt and then he was hurt late in the year. So I could see where he looks at his overall numbers and says, geez, that's not the player that I want to be.
I mean, first of all, it kind of fires you up a little bit.
It does.
Like you kind of love it when you hear a player do that. Debo Samuel has now gotten paid, but Debo is not going to sit back and rest. Like he's got a desire to come out and be so much better this year, and so that's wonderful. But back to the issue at hand, I fully acknowledge your point with regard to the team Brock was playing with versus when Jimmy showed up. 2 totally different animals. 2 totally different. So
and even the coach that he was playing for, I think, was totally different. That was Kyle's first year.
That's an interesting
As
point.
opposed to now, where
that's an interesting point.
I mean, the laminated play sheet is much more, I think, secure in terms of what he's trying to do with this team.
Right. So he was a rookie head coach at the time.
Yes.
But he was not, obviously. I mean, he's been Kyle Shanahan play caller for a long time in the league.
Yes, but he was 1-10, turning to Jimmy Garoppolo, low pressure, low wattage, no talent. It was a little bit easier, I think, for Kyle as opposed to now where Kyle's much more established in terms of what he's doing.
For those of you who think that Brock Purdy is just Jimmy 2.0 also, may I bring up a different point? Brock Purdy appears, I've never met the guy, but he appears to not be the kind of guy that will just, leave his head coach on red for 6 months. Like, what about who these guys are outside of that? And I'm not turning Jimmy Garoppolo into being a bad teammate. I don't think he is that. I thought his sideline demeanor was phenomenal. I thought his command of the huddle was very good. He was a very, very good quarterback, but never statistically great. And it sounds like maybe at times almost a little bit aloof in the offseason. Purdy, it feels like, and I would probably say this about all the 49er quarterbacks right now, like they handle themselves in exactly the way you would want them to handle themselves. I'm already going to give Brock Purdy a nod over Jimmy in terms of like the quarterback head coach relationship. That's already better.
Yeah, and that's pretty easy to see in terms of the fact that he is actually here and talking about, throwing and Kyle and the things that Kyle and John have said about Brock Purdy. It feels like they're much more on the same page. It was stunning to hear those reports when they first came out about Jimmy Garoppolo leaving the coach on red and, completely kind of ignoring the offseason communication therein. And now we know about Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Raiders.
Remember Kyle just a couple months ago was like, have you talked to Jimmy? He's like, I'd have to run into him. That tells you all you need to know. So I don't know, man. I look at this and I acknowledge that it's been 8 games, so there's no way that we can all define who Brock is and where it's going to go next. There's no way we can do that. But I feel that in both directions. The same way I think that those 8 games, you cannot say that Brock is going to be great. You also cannot say that he's not. You can't say that.
That he's not going to be great?
How can you say that? How would we know? Like, again, when people say that, to me, it feels like they're saying, look, he's got a 7th-round grade. How on earth could he be great? I think you said the other day, or maybe it was one of our callers, but it was like, Brock is who he's going to be.
It was me.
8 games? 8 games, and now we've decided that he's complete?
I said he's closer to his ceiling than Trey Lance is.
Maybe. I don't know what his ceiling is.
Right.
Maybe he's going to be even better. Maybe he's going to win all the games forever, Dibs.
Sure.
Never going to lose.
Is he more likely to be Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0 or Tom Brady in terms of his career arc?
More likely?
Right.
I guess I don't know how anything could be likely and have it also be Tom Brady. So I guess I would answer that as Jimmy. But I'm not really about comparing Brock to Tom Brady. That's a crazy thing to be saying about somebody 8 games into their career.
What if we compare him to Kirk Cousins?
Okay.
If he has a Kirk Cousins-like career.
What's the difference between the Kirk Cousins career and the Jimmy career, I guess?
Well, I think Cousins has been more cemented, more permanent in terms of his job as a starter.
It's statistically better than Jimmy, but not in the win-loss column.
Right close, though, in the postseason in terms of postseason bursts and the ability to stay healthy.
I don't even.
I'd have to look it up, but I think Kirk has.
I feel like his playoff record has got to be way worse.
But more playoff appearances on a worse team, I would imagine.
I wonder.
I'll punch it up.
Yeah,
for you.
punch up Kirk Cousins' playoff starts versus Jimmy's playoff starts. Jimmy, when he gets there, tends to stay longer. Than Kirk. How many playoff wins does Kirk Cousins have in his career?
He's 1-3 in the postseason.
All right, so Jimmy's got more games and a way better record. So. I don't know which one you'd pick. Kirk Cousins helps people's fantasy team. Jimmy helps people's real team. That's the way I would define those two guys.
Yeah.
But I don't mean can he be Brady. I just mean can he be great? Like I'm open to that. Brock Purdy might be great. I don't know. I got no reason so far. I've seen nothing that suggests that that's off the table. Right? When he plays, I understand when you see him play, you're not like, oh my gosh, this doesn't fly off the screen at you. But it often doesn't look that way with quarterbacking in the NFL. Like, his numbers are great. His numbers at the end of a 5 to 8 game stretch, whether you want to count playoffs or not, were legitimately like high-level NFL elite quarterbacking. You push 40 touchdowns per season and only pick off, 10 or 11, that's elite quarterback play. So why would I take being great off of the table?
You wouldn't, but in terms of how great can he be the kind of quarterback to lead you to a Super Bowl win? I'm not sure if I would put my stock in that. Can he have a year like Jimmy Garoppolo did in 2019, where he went 13-3 and he threw for nearly 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns. Jimmy had 13 picks, which feels like a lot, but he was second in comeback player of the year voting. He was an all-pro. Can Brock Purdy be a quarterback like that?